Hello and welcome to the Motorcycle Report. My name's Ryan, and if you're like me, you want to know all there is to know about the past, present, and future of the motorcycle world. And today I'd like to review the movie 1 Week, starring Joshua Jackson. You remember you may remember him from Dawson's Creek. I'll quote Wikipedia to tell you a little bit about him. Jackson's personal life, quote, Jackson was in a relationship with Dawson Creek co-star Katie Holmes during the first 2 seasons of the show's run. Holmes claims Jackson was her first love. So we know he's got some good Hollywood ties going on there, but he is a Canadian actor. And for the movie 1 Week, which was filmed in 2008 and maybe 2009, I felt he did a pretty good job. Could have used a little bit more, maybe emotion here and there, maybe a little bit of cardboard, but all in all, he was fun to watch. So let's talk about the movie 1 Week, and I'll go to Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I've had trouble with Rotten Tomatoes ever since they reviewed the new Star Wars movie from last December, The Last Jedi, and all of the professional review guys gave it a whole bunch of accolades, and so I felt like it was a big financial coup for Lucasfilm to say, hey, we're gonna want you to bump up our score, or maybe they were in contact with the reviewers and said, hey, get on there and give us good reviews. How that got through to the professional reviewers, I'm not sure, but anyway, kind of rambling on about that. So on Rotten Tomatoes, 1 Week got 50%, which is rotten on the tomato meter, from the professional critics. The audience score was 73% liked it, with an average rating of 3.7 out of 5. And so what we can do here is just read a couple of quotes from Rotten Tomatoes, a couple good ones and a couple bad ones. That'll give you kind of the kickoff to this review. So let's go to a good one, and this would be from Greg Quill of the Toronto Star. When Toronto's in Canada, this is a Canadian movie. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but let me read it to you. Greg Quill says, subsumed in Canada's vast landscape, Ben finds ephemeral distraction and occasional edification, but not much in the way of great epiphanies. And that was a good review, I guess. Even though it didn't completely convince me that it was a good review. All right. And then here's the more blatant, blunt Dennis Harvey from Variety magazine. This is at the top of the list of the professional reviewers on Rotten Tomatoes for the movie 1 Week. Kind of aimless, pleasant, and bland from Dennis Harvey. That's a quote from him. And then if we go down maybe to the audience reviews, I'll read one with 4.5 stars, and then I'll read one with the 2.5 stars. So this is from Bentley Lyles, who's a super reviewer, and I'm just reading the little blurb that they have, not the whole review. And Bentley Lyles, who gave it 4.5 stars, quotes, 1 week tells the story of a man named Ben who discovers that he has stage 4 cancer. This soon affects his life, family, and fiancé. To escape his sadness, he goes trek to Western Canada on a motorcycle to spend his final weeks and days and months. I stumbled across this, and he probably is going to go on to say on Amazon Prime, which is where I found it. Don't know that that's what he said, but I'm just assuming, and I'm not going to click on the rest of his review. So over in the 2.5 stars from Jim Caretr, Caretr, on Rotten Tomatoes. He's just a viewing reviewer, not a professional. He gives it 2.5 stars and says, not a horrible movie, just a dull and depressing one though. Saw it at a film festival and it wasn't horrible, but I've seen better. And in some ways, and I'll agree with all of these reviewers and all the reviews that I see. I do agree for the most part. It's not the most emotionally involved film that you want to get into, but there are moments, there are times when I was very satisfied emotionally, but it doesn't have that overall arc. That overall arc seems to be laden with some comedic moments about views into Ben, who's played by Joshua Jackson, into his mind as he's riding across Canada after he's found out that he doesn't know how long he has to live because he has stage 4 cancer. And some of the reviewers even went on to say that it's just another morbid way to express a desperate trek. And here's the thing: is a trek really that desperate? When you ask yourself, and here's a question from the movie: what would you do if you had one day, or if you had just 1 week, or just 1 month to live? How would you spend that? And is it really that desperate to get on a classic motorcycle and go riding across the country to view your homeland in the absolute best way possible? And we all know that's by riding a motorcycle, of course. But he could have done something real crazy. I don't know, like you just put up a whole myriad of things, right? Go spend, and one of the things from the movie was they were talking about a guy who had spent his fortune when he found out that he was dying, and spent his fortune on just frivolous things. Come to find out that once he was broke, then the doctor said, "Oh, we're sorry, we misdiagnosed you. You don't have cancer." So, wow, thanks. Now what am I going to do? So basically, what I'm saying is that this is not such a far stretch for somebody to, feel a bit of a desperation and say, how am I going to live my last days? Well, I'm not going to go, rob a bank, and I'm not going to go rape women, and I'm not going to, kill people. But I need to find my space, and that's what he was doing in this movie. And so, I'm sure other people may want to do other things than ride a motorcycle across their country, but I don't know. I might consider that if somebody told me I only had a week to live, or a month to live, or a year to live. You gotta do what you gotta do. All right, so let's go to 1 week description on Wikipedia. I'll kind of read it to you, and then we can go from there. I'll tell you a little bit about the Norton Commando 850 motorcycle that Ben, who is Joshua Jackson's character, rides across Canada. So here on the 1 week wiki page, I'll quote the description of the movie. 1 Week is a 2008 Canadian drama film directed by Michael McGowan and starring Joshua Jackson, Leanne Balaban, and Campbell Scott. The film debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8, 2008, and was released theatrically on March 6, 2009. Jackson plays Ben Tyler, who has been diagnosed with cancer. Requiring immediate treatment, he instead decides to take a motorcycle trip from Toronto across Canada to Vancouver Island. Along the way, he meets several people that help him reevaluate his relationship with his fiancée Samantha, played by Balaban, his job, and his dream of becoming a writer. The scenic backdrop of the Canadian landscape, as well as an all-Canadian soundtrack, serve as prevalent influences in the film. Joshua Jackson won Best Actor at the 2010 Genie Awards for his portrayal as Ben Tyler. Leanne Balaban was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And yeah, the performances were done very well. The music was very good. Very peaceful, relaxing, introspective landscape of a movie where you feel like you're having those intimate moments with Ben, and where he's kind of having trouble coming to grips with having cancer. But as I'd mentioned before, it would have been nice to delve in a little bit deeper to those emotions. But I guess it didn't get in the way of the enjoyment of the trip, So you have to kind of have a good balance there. I've seen movies that kind of go overboard on witnessing the trials and tribulations of going through illnesses, and it kind of detracts from the movie that you're trying to enjoy with the protagonist. So this didn't delve too deep into the cancer issues, but enough to where you felt like this is kind of the last time he's going to have to really be free and enjoy life, and so and the filmmakers didn't take that away from you by making him too ill or and so on. So he was a English teacher, I think in junior high was his job. The movie starts out with the doctor diagnosing his cancer to him, and then a little bit of and it's strange that there's a little bit of a comedic moments going on where he's the thoughts running through his mind are shooting himself or a bird slamming into the window and blood on the window and stuff like that, and it comes across as a little bit funny. You're a little shocked at the beginning, but then you're like, yeah, what's going to go through your mind when a doctor tells you that, when you have stage 4 cancer. So you just have to kind of follow along. Go, okay, we're going to have some light moments of comedy here to help get us through the tough times that are possible ahead. So, all right, well, let's go to a quick note on the Norton Commando, which he buys from an older gentleman. After he runs out of the doctor's office, he books it down the street and into an alleyway, trying to run away from this news or run towards what he's going to do. And so coincidentally, and an ironic coincidence, there's a my best guess is that the motorcycle is a 1973 or 1974 Norton Commando 850, MK1 850cc, and so the note on the Norton Commando 850 is that the engine size is 828 cc's, the top speed is 115 miles per hour, horsepower is 58, transmission is a 4-speed with a chain drive, and the seat height is 33 to 34 inches, weight's 420 pounds, not a real heavy bike, and the fuel capacity is just 2.2 gallons, or 2.6 U.S. gallons. Now let's read on the Norton for a moment, and I'm quoting Wikipedia here. It says, during its 10 years of production, the Commando was popular all over the world. In the United Kingdom, it won the Motorcycle News Machine of the Year award for 5 successive years, from 1968 to 1972. Given that its engine was an old pre-unit design, even Norton chairman Dennis Poor expressed surprise at the Commando's remarkable success. So they made a good motorcycle there that lasted a long time. And the 745cc version, of course, came out prior to the 850cc version. Now, the version of the motorcycle in the movie would have been one that was made would be the MK1 from 1973 or 1974, because in 1975 they introduced another 850cc Norton that was had an electric starter and had a bunch of like a rear disc brake, some upgrades. And the reason I could tell the difference was because the bike that Ben was riding in the movie, he had to kick it to start it, and only the 73 and 74 versions had the kicker, and maybe the 75 version did. Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe it did, and he was just kicking it to add drama or whatever to the movie. So maybe they just weren't using the electric starter. So I could be wrong, but it's a 1970s Norton 850 Commando. All right, so as Ben's on his trek out here across Canada, he likes to stop off at a bunch of different big things, like the biggest teepee in the world, the biggest pheasant in the world, I believe, or goose. I mean, what do you call those guys? Not ducks, but Canadian geese, or I'm not sure what they're called, something like that. Anyway, but and he also went to the biggest fire hydrant and the biggest dinosaur, and he increasingly became more disappointed as he would go to these big things as he went across, and so I guess he'd seen enough of it, as we all might. You've seen enough of the big stuff, and what do you look at when you're going across Canada? Well, there's beautiful views, of course, and he saw lots of those, and he took some tours of the rocky plains, the cut out portions of land, the mesas, and things of this nature. The beautiful sky, the fog, the rain. You just get lots of variety of different atmospheres and views from his trip. Now, this was prior to heavy GoPro use, but the filmmakers were good enough to keep us in close to him riding and really feel like we were along for the trip, and that's what I like to see in my motorcycle movies, is a good, convincing ride along, even though they've done a good job with the magic of movie making, of feeling like you're just gliding along with the motorcycle and the rider. That's what makes it a lot of fun. So as we move along on here, I'll tell you, there were questions of whether he had made the right choice to marry the right lady in his life. How was he going to tell his parents about his illness? What would he do with as far as if he met someone new on the road? I don't want to give everything away, but you kind of know where I'm going with it. But I don't want to just have it be a complete spoiler review, but I will give you some spoilers, some. So let me head over to a questionnaire that I got from bethinking.org, which is a website kind of made for thinkers. They have little things on here like C.S. Lewis and the language of apologetics, mapping reality, youth resources, that's for stuff, and so the website bethinking.org, they have things like is Christianity true? Is the Bible reliable? Does God exist? Is there a creator? And these are some of the things also that Ben was asking as we were going through the movie. Is he a believer in religion and things like that? And he was struggling with that through the movie. I would have, I think, enjoyed it more if he had been a staunch believer in Christ and things like that. And I'm not a Bible thumping person, but you gotta believe in something and in destiny and things like that to kind of live a fuller life, and that's where I'm coming from. But let me go back to the bethinking.org site. I picked up a questions to consider when watching a film questionnaire that was, and I'll read it right here. It's copyright by Tony Watkins, 2006, all rights reserved. So thank you, Tony. I'm going to use your questionnaire. If you have any trouble, let me know. But thank you. And now I have something to look at while I'm doing this review and all subsequent reviews. So I wanted to throw out a shout to Tony Watkins. Don't know Tony, don't know where he's from or what he does, but he makes up a good movie questionnaire page. And so just checking something. So let's go to some of Tony's questions. Number one's the initial response. And the question is, how did the film make you feel? It's a great movie for watching on a Sunday afternoon when you don't have anybody to really meet with or, anything to do, and you're just relaxing from the week's work, and maybe you did some errands on Saturday and you just want to kick back and relax and enjoy your day. Give me a motorcycle movie. Well, here we go. And, it made me feel good to see it. It made me feel like, this guy was able to work out some of his troubles with a motorcycle, and that's what I'm loving these days to think about, especially since, my motorcycle's put away for the winter, so I want to be able to see others who are enjoying life on their motorcycles. I can live vicariously through them. I don't want to have cancer, but, I can step back and watch, and if it ever does happen to me, I don't know that I'd do something completely different than what he did. So I was very happy to to watch the movie. It was very interesting to me because I'm a motorcycle guy. Okay, next question is, what aspect of the film did you most engage with? What will you remember? Well, the reliance on his motorcycle to get him to where he needed to go, and he did have it break down once or twice, and had some troubles there, and I haven't had mine break down. I hope I don't. I haven't had a motorcycle go back, stop on me completely and not be able to get it running again, ever. So, not that I've had lots of troubles. I mostly ride Honda, so haha. Okay, let's go to the next one. It was a good feel good movie, even though it was based in some depressing thoughts. But that comedic element came in, and that wider view of the world in general came in and helped me enjoy it. So the next one is, what does it make you think about? I think I already answered that. Next one is, would you watch it again? Why or why not? Yeah, I would watch it again, but it would probably be down the road. I don't need to see it a month from now or a year from now, maybe 5 years from now or something. I would check it out again. So then the rest of the questions in part 1 are relating to if you watch it again. Except for the last one, where it says, how would different people view this film differently depending on gender, age, ethnic background, worldview, etc.? Well, everybody's going to have their own different views of it. I don't want to generalize anybody, because then you get into trouble, right? If you say, well, I don't know if women would like it because, the girl in this wasn't treated very well. She didn't like motorcycles. And let me put it to you this way. If you don't like motorcycles and you don't like to discover outside of the box of our everyday scheduled lives that we must adhere to in order to survive, then you probably won't like it. But if you like to get outside the box and go roam around a little bit, without leaving the comforts of your home, this will be good for you. And there's cancer out there. People suffer from it. So I'll give you some thoughts about that too. So question 2 is, what is the place of this film within the culture? How popular is this film? How well did it do at the box office? Okay. Well, I think the budget was about $2 million, and it earned back at the box office about $488,000, I believe. So it didn't quite get to 1/4 of making its money back, and that's just from the box office. That's not from, we don't know how much it made for streaming services and things like that. So I would like to hope that it's made its money back by now. That was 10 years ago. And too bad if it hasn't. And I think more people should have gone to see it, really. So let's see. How influential is it? How influential is it? Has it been referenced in later films, television programs, etc.? I haven't noticed it. But again, it's kind of for the motorcycle loving demographic. Or what would you do if you had this much time to live? Would a motorcycle be a part of that? And if you say yes, then you should see it, but not a lot, worldwide. I don't know how many people. Plus the advertising, I don't remember any advertising for it at the time it came out. Maybe they didn't have a big advertising budget. So, all right, what kind of buzz has it created? What media exposure? Okay, so I'll just stop right there. Again, I don't remember a lot of the advertising and things like that. So they should have promoted it better. So, question 3, how well has the film been made? Is artistic and technical excellence achieved by screenplay, direction, cinematography, acting, editing, special effects, and soundtrack? I think the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty accurate. I would say I would give it a 73% happiness. The soundtrack was enjoyable. There weren't any special effects because it wasn't that kind of movie. The editing was nice. The acting was nice. The cinematography was nice. The direction was nice. And the screenplay was nice. But it wasn't anything completely, groundbreaking. It was just something to enjoy on a Sunday afternoon. And it wasn't cheaply made. You don't feel like you're being cheated. You feel like that the time that you spend with it is time well spent. So, who are the filmmakers? Let's take a look real quick here. The director is Michael McGowan, and he has made movies like um, Still Mine, uh, Vacation with no, wait a minute, Saint Ralph. Okay, you probably heard of Saint Ralph and Still Mine. Those are the two that came to mind, but they're not huge movies. So, but he does a pretty decent job there. I was happy with the movie, to put it really bluntly. What did you think of the casting? I thought it was well done. What experiences were created by the use of a particular actor? Yeah, I think he was pretty much made for the part. Maybe somebody who showed a little bit more emotion. Maybe I would have liked a little bit more, but I didn't feel like it was really lacking. Okay, what was the original context of the film? When was the film made, and what was the prevailing world view? Well, it's interesting because I made a documentary film myself a few years ago in 2013 called Single in Seattle. And my concern was that there are too many single people in the world these days, and it just happened to revolve around the Seattle area. And so the relationship dynamic with Ben and his girlfriend, and him leaving and going off on his motorcycle, was interesting to me. Because I was all about, in my documentary film, about why aren't people getting together? What's the problem? There's such a dynamic between personalities, and I asked people questions about, why they felt they weren't in relationships. I filmed dream dates, I filmed bad dates, things like that. So let me repeat the question. When was the film made? What was the prevailing worldview? So I made my movie approximately around the same time this was made, I started filming it in 2009, late 2009. This movie was made in 2009. I finished in 2013. Took me that long to do it. But I thought it was interesting when I was watching it, the like I said, the dynamic between what Ben's looking for in a relationship and what his girlfriend was looking for in a relationship. Ben was mentioning about how his girlfriend or fiance was all about a structured life, and everything had to be cut cards and punch in this time, do everything in an orderly fashion, or else you just go crazy. And Ben was seeking out, at least with this, and maybe, because of his passion, English teacher and more on the drama side of life, he was looking for less structure and more experience-driven satisfaction from life, from views outside, as I mentioned before, the proverbial box that we find ourselves in on a daily routine in our jobs that we have to have in order to survive. So let's move on a little bit, and but just to touch on that briefly, so we have a couple different mindsets in this world, and I think that's why people get into trouble, because they're not able to balance the opposite attracts thing, or the same attracts, and not too much of the same or not enough of the same in my partner. And there's some selfishness going on in the world. Anyway, moving on. What is the genre? Is it fantasy, biography, drama, comedy, science fiction, historical drama, horror, romance, war, western, romantic comedy, film noir, documentary, etc.? So I would have to say it's a drama, kind of a biography drama with comedic elements, but the comedy doesn't override the biography drama. So that's what I would say. And how is the narrative structure? When a turning point in the narrative come, or the major sections evenly balanced. So when do the turning points in the narrative come, and the major sections evenly balanced? So first I want to mention that Campbell Scott was the narrator of the film, and he added a great deal of levity to it because of his great voice. You should listen to Campbell Scott. He's a great narrator, legendary. And so he did a fine job with the narration, and I'm happy he was there. Often they say if you have to have a narrator, your film's in trouble, but that's not always true, and it wasn't true in this case. So when do the turning points in the narrative come? Are the major section evenly balanced? The turning point, I believe, comes when Ben realizes that he shouldn't have gotten married to. He shouldn't be getting married to his fiancee, and he should have discovered that even prior to when he was being diagnosed with cancer. The cancer just kind of brought it to the forefront because he had to evaluate his life under a microscope. And so they remained good friends, and at the end of the movie, they were laying in a bed together talking about things. So she was holding on to him while he would go through this cancer, and my hat's off to her. She said that she did not want to be the person that would be talked about as the one who would leave her fiance just because he has cancer, and she said that's the way that she would think about somebody if she knew someone who did that with their fiance. So that was cool. All right, and so that was a major turning point for me is what's going to happen with that relationship, and it didn't work out, and that's too bad. But he did have joys along the way, other than just looking at the largest teepee in the world and things like that. So, or the largest dinosaur. Okay, so the next question off of Tony Watkins' question sheet, and I'm just kind of scrolling through to see if there's anything on here that sticks out for me. And the film was kind of shot. It says how is meaning created, and how's the film lit, and is the color significant? Where's the camera for key shots? It was balanced very well, and it didn't feel like a documentary, but it didn't feel like a full-on Hollywood movie with the glitz and the glamour and all that kind of stuff. So it was a happy middle area with everything lit just fine, and you felt, like I said, you really felt like you were on the trip with Ben. So I've been rambling on for quite a while about this movie, so I think you have my views of it. So I'm going to cut this down here. You can check it out on Amazon Prime right now. It's free, called 1 Week with Joshua Jackson, and it's a fine movie. It's a good way to spend a couple of hours on a Sunday afternoon, especially if you're a motorcycle enthusiast and want to go for a trip without leaving the comforts of your home. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to hear more, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.